In General Hospital during the week of February 16, 2026, I think we're looking at a story that's equal parts reunion and emotional wreckage. Maxie is finally awake. After years in a long slumber, she's back in the world she left behind. But it's not the same world anymore. When Felicia tells Maxie that Nathan is alive and that James has already formed a bond with his father, I can only imagine the emotional whiplash. To me, that's the kind of revelation that doesn't just change your day, it changes your entire reality. All of this happened while Maxie was gone. Life moved forward without her, and now she has to catch up. Maxie is well enough to go home, and I think that's the most bittersweet part. Home should feel safe. Instead, it's filled with landmines. She's thrilled to reunite with her children and friends, of course, but seeing Nathan again after believing he was dead for years, that's not a simple hug and forgive moment. That's history, that's grief, that's unfinished love. And then there's Spinelli. I honestly feel for him. He's bracing for impact, and I don't blame him. From his perspective, everything he's built with Maxie could disappear overnight. Maxie and Nathan didn't choose to be apart. Fate chose that for them. Now, fate has reversed itself. If they have another chance to be a family, how do they not at least consider it? But if they do, what does that mean for Spinelli? Liesl, in true dramatic fashion, rushes to Nathan with the news of Maxie's awakening, telling him that all his dreams are coming true. I was wondering if it really feels that simple to him, because from where I'm standing, it's anything but simple. Nathan has just started moving forward with Lulu. He made a decision. He was trying to rebuild. And now? Everything he thought he'd settled is shaken again. That's the kind of twist that makes you question whether closure is ever real in Port Charles. Lulu's position might be the most emotionally complicated of all. She knows what it's like to wake up from a coma and discover that life has rewritten itself without your consent. How does she justify pursuing something with Nathan when Maxie, her best friend, is only just waking up to the truth? I didn't realize how layered this triangle would feel until now. Brooklyn's advice may suddenly carry a lot more weight. And then there's that haunting image, Nathan standing at his own grave. That moment says everything. He stares at the headstone bearing his name, a symbol of the life everyone thought he'd lost. I think that scene alone captures the emotional core of this story. Who is he now? The man who died? The man who survived? Or someone in between? And when someone approaches him from behind, I can't help but wonder, could this finally be his first face-to-face with Maxie since 2018? If it is, that reunion won't just be emotional. It will be explosive. There's also that lingering question that's hard to ignore. If Nathan was never truly dead, what was actually in that casket? Was anyone ever meant to look too closely? To me, this week feels less like a simple reunion arc and more like a reckoning. Love interrupted, grief rewritten, families redefined. Port Charles is about to confront the past in a very literal way, and I'm not sure anyone walks away unchanged. I have to say, looking at the General Hospital spoilers for Tuesday, February 17, 2026, I can't help but feel like we're circling back to something big. And to me, that something is deception. When I saw that Tracy has some choice words for Sidwell, I immediately thought, okay, are we finally putting deception back in the spotlight? Because let's be honest, the company has been sitting in the background lately. Maxie has been in a coma. Thankfully, she's awake now. Lucy and Sidwell's relationship completely fell apart for a minute, and now Lucy is pretending she's fine with him cozying up to her and Ava. And I think we all know that's not because she's suddenly at peace. That's strategy. That's revenge brewing. Meanwhile, Brooklyn and Tracy have been distracted with their own drama. But here's the thing. Deception's future is tied to Sidwell. And if there's one thing I know about Tracy, it's that she does not like being tied to a man she doesn't control. I may be wrong, but I feel like she's realizing this partnership could come back to bite her. And when Tracy decides she doesn't like something, she doesn't whisper about it. She detonates. Now I'm really curious to see how Sidwell handles her. He has a very short fuse when he's challenged. Just ask Sunny, just ask Laura. So if Tracy goes in swinging, will Sidwell snap? Or will he surprise us and play it cool? Speaking of Sunny, the dynamic between Sunny and Rick always makes me uneasy. They're half-brothers with a long, messy history. Yes, things have thawed recently. Sunny has been leaning on Rick's legal brilliance. Rick helped Rocco, and he played a key role in the Willow and Michael custody situation. But I don't know. Something feels off. The teasers say Rick questions Sunny. And then we have Carly saying, Sunny insists Rick doesn't have an agenda, but I don't buy it. And when Carly doesn't buy something, I tend to listen. So what agenda could Rick possibly have? Is he positioning himself for power? Is this about family? Or is he playing a longer, quieter game? I was wondering if Rick questioning Sunny might actually be the first crack in whatever fragile peace they've built. Meanwhile, Dante is carrying the weight of the world. He's being considered for permanent police commissioner since Anna is out of commission and Jordan doesn't want the job. That's huge. That's life-altering. And on top of that, he's waiting for the DA's office to decide whether Michael will be charged with attempted murder for shooting Drew. That's not just professional pressure. That's personal. Dante makes an admission to Michael on Tuesday, and I really hope, and I mean really hope, that he's not telling him he believes he's guilty. I think that would devastate Michael. I'm hoping Dante reassures him instead. But this is a soap, so reassurance is never guaranteed. Then we have Laura surprising Alexis, and I can't help but wonder what that's about. Laura usually doesn't move without purpose. And finally, Lucas. Lucas is in serious trouble. He overheard a private conversation between Sidwell and Marco, and what he learned changes everything. His relationship with Marco isn't built on truth. It's built on lies and criminal activity. Marco knows about his father's crimes. Worse, he participates in them. If Lucas is described as adamant, I think that means he's done being passive. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like he's about to confront Marco head-on. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ends the relationship and moves out of Windermere altogether. But here's the real question. If Lucas comes clean about what he overheard, how will Marco react? Will he try to manipulate him? Threaten him? Or will we see a crack in Marco's cool exterior? Tuesday feels like one of those episodes where quiet tensions start boiling over. Tracy versus Sidwell, Rick versus Sunny, Dante versus doubt, Lucas versus the truth. And in Port Charles, when truths start surfacing, nothing stays stable for long. I think the tension brewing on General Hospital is about to explode. And to me, Pascal'S next move feels like it could spiral into something far more dangerous than anyone expects. There's already a mountain of bad blood between Lucas Jones and Pascal. From the very beginning, I felt Lucas clocked something unsettling about the so-called butler. Creepy, odd. Watching a little too closely. But what really shifted things from suspicious to outright hostile was when Lucas called Pascal out for being jealous. That confrontation changed the energy completely. Of course, Lucas didn't have the full picture. He had no idea what his boyfriend, Marco Rios, was secretly involved in with his father, Jen Sidwell. So honestly, I can't even blame Lucas for lashing out. From his perspective, something felt off, and he trusted his instincts. Afterward, Sidwell made it crystal clear where Pascal stood. He told him to stay on Lucas's good side. That moment said everything to me. Marco loves Lucas. Sidwell loves Marco. And Pascal? At the end of the day, he's just an employee. Disposable even. But what really caught my attention was Pascal's reaction. At first, he looked furious, like he was barely containing his anger. Then that expression shifted into something else entirely. Smugness. Especially after he caught Lucas eavesdropping on Marco and Sidwell's conversation. Lucas thought he was being slick, but Pascal saw everything. And that's when I started wondering if a plan was already forming in his mind. Things escalated even more during the February 13th episode when Lucas confronted Marco on the Windermere parapet. That setting alone screamed danger. And with another clash looming in the February 16th episode, I can't help but think Lucas now knows too much. The question is, what will Marco do about it? And more importantly, would he turn to Pascal to handle the situation? Let's not forget, Pascal is more than capable of going dark. He kidnapped Anna Devane, held her captive in the catacombs, and even shipped her off to France. He may be small in stature, but he's proven he's crafty and ruthless. To me, that makes him incredibly dangerous. So what kind of scheme could he be cooking up for Lucas? Here's where I think things could take a horrible turn. What if Pascal attempts to eliminate Lucas, but something goes wrong? Soap operas love irony, and nothing would be more tragic than Marco becoming collateral damage in a plan meant for someone else. Whether it's a gunshot gone astray or some explosive setup that Lucas narrowly escapes, I can absolutely see a scenario where Marco ends up paying the ultimate price. And if that happens, Pascal won't just face Sidwell's anger, he'll face his wrath. I also can't ignore the behind-the-scenes speculation. Adrian Encando's absence from recent cast photos has fans questioning Marco's future. Now, maybe that means nothing, or maybe it means everything. February Sweeps is notorious for shocking exits, and killing off Marco would certainly send shockwaves through Port Charles. If Pascal's scheme backfires, and Marco ends up caught in the crossfire, it wouldn't just be a tragic accident. It would be catastrophic. Sidwell has already seemed irritated with Pascal lately. I was wondering if we've been watching the slow build toward Pascal sealing his own fate. Because if he tries to take out Lucas, and the boss's son ends up dead instead, I don't see Pascal surviving that fallout. To me, this feels like a powder keg storyline. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and everything changes. And in Port Charles, when secrets, jealousy, and revenge collide, nobody walks away untouched. I have to say, Monday's General Hospital episode for February 16th looks absolutely packed, and I think there are multiple storylines quietly building towards something much bigger. To me, the biggest emotional undercurrent is Britt Westbourne sneaking off to see Jason Morgan. I was wondering how long Britt could realistically stay away from him, especially with Ross Cullum forbidding her from having Jason in her life. And honestly, I didn't realize just how risky this little Valentine's Day reunion could become. If Ross finds out, that could explode in ways Britt may not be prepared for. But I think that just makes it more romantic and more dangerous. Meanwhile, Carly Spencer's instincts are kicking in again, and I tend to trust Carly's instincts. Even though Sonny Corinthos seems to be warming up to Rick Lansing and even leaning on his legal expertise, Carly suspects Rick has an agenda. And to me, that feels like classic Rick. I may be wrong, but Rick rarely moves without a strategy in place. Carly confiding in Jason about her concerns shows that she's not fully buying this sudden détente. Something feels off, and I think Carly senses it before anyone else does. Then there's the surprise that completely shifts the emotional landscape. Maxie Jones waking up. When Liesl Obrecht storms in with that news while Britt and Nathan West are discussing Anna Devane's claims about César Faison being alive, I can just imagine the shock on Nathan's face. I think this changes everything. Whatever was brewing between Nathan and Lulu Spencer, that's hitting pause immediately. But here's what fascinates me most. Maxie doesn't believe it at first. Over in Boston, when Felicia Scorpio tells her that Nathan is alive, Maxie is understandably in disbelief. And I don't blame her. After all the back-from-the-grave chaos in Port Charles, how could she just accept that? Even with DNA and fingerprint confirmation, I feel like Maxie will need more than science. She'll need that emotional certainty. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think she'll insist she'll know in her heart if it's truly him. And honestly, that reunion could be beautiful or devastating. At the same time, we've got some lighter but still layered moments at the hatchet-throwing range. Elizabeth Baldwin and Rick Lansing on a flirty date? I didn't see that setting coming, but I kind of love it. It shows Liz letting loose a little. But what makes this even more interesting is that Jacinda Bracken brings Michael Corinthos to the exact same place. That feels intentional. Jacinda wants to show Michael another side of herself, and I think she's carefully crafting how he sees her. Maybe it's sweet, maybe it's calculated. With this show, I'm always suspicious. Back at GH, Liesl pushing Britt for an unexpected favor has to connect to Faison. If Anna is insisting he's alive, then this could reopen some very dangerous doors. Liesl doesn't make requests lightly, especially when it comes to her history with Faison. Then we move to Windermere, and that's where things take a darker turn. Lucas Jones confronting Marco Rios feels like a ticking time bomb. Marco doubling down on deception and trying to gaslight Lucas? That's classic defensive manipulation. But Lucas isn't backing down. He knows what he overheard. He's not buying the lies. And when Marco grabs Lucas's arm and warns that he's not going anywhere, that's the moment I felt the danger spike. Lucas may eventually make it back to the mainland, since we know he tracks Carly down at the Metro Court during the week, but I think he could still be in serious trouble. Eavesdropping in Port Charles rarely ends well. Elsewhere, Harrison Chase and Brooklyn Quartermain reminiscing and making new Valentine's Day memories gives us a softer emotional note. And Molly Lansing Davis catching up with Alexis Davis may bring conversations about her potential multi-book deal and the ongoing Cody Bell complications. That feels like quieter character development. But on this show, even quiet conversations plant seeds. Overall, I think Monday's episode balances romance, suspicion, and danger in classic General Hospital fashion. We've got secret Valentine's meetups, shocking awakenings, emotional reunions looming, manipulative confrontations, and long-buried enemies possibly resurfacing. And if there's one thing I've learned about Port Charles, it's this. When multiple storylines start heating up at once, something explosive usually follows. I may be right, I may be wrong, but I definitely don't think this is just another ordinary February episode. When I heard that Steve Burton is taking a break from General Hospital, I immediately started wondering how on earth they're going to write Jason Morgan out this time. He made it clear on social media that he's not gone for good and hopes to be back by summer, so to me, that rules out anything permanent. No dramatic funeral, no goodbye forever. At least, I don't think so. Still, this is Port Charles. Anything can happen. Right now, Jason is deeply involved in what's going on with Anna Devane and her hospitalization. I feel like the writers have practically handed themselves an exit storyline. It seems inevitable that Jason would head to Europe to confront Anna's situation directly. That's just who he is. If someone he cares about is in trouble, especially locked away in a mental institution under suspicious circumstances, he's not sitting back and waiting for updates. I was thinking, what if he goes overseas to investigate and things spiral out of control? Maybe he tries to stage some kind of rescue mission. I wouldn't put it past him. But what if that rescue attempt goes completely wrong? What if he ends up the one who needs saving? To me, there are really three solid possibilities here. First, the legal route. Jason could get caught trying to free Anna and wind up in a foreign prison. That would be a clean, temporary write-out. He's alive, he's off-screen. And when Steve Burton is ready to return, the show can mount a dramatic rescue. It's classic Jason, danger, international drama, high stakes. Second, the medical twist. This week we saw Maxie Jones wake up from her coma. And I couldn't help but wonder, was that timing intentional? Soap operas love balance. One character wakes up, another falls. If Jason were shot during some European showdown, the writers could easily put him in a coma to explain his absence. It's soapy, it's emotional, and it keeps the door wide open for his return. Then there's the psychological angle. What if Jason doesn't just fail to rescue Anna? What if he ends up institutionalized himself? Imagine him locked up in the same facility, or somewhere similar, misidentified, drugged, or held hostage. I may be wrong, but that kind of twist would be dark, dramatic, and very on-brand for a sweeping soap storyline. He wouldn't be dead. He wouldn't even technically be gone. He'd just be trapped, waiting for the right moment to be saved. At the end of the day, I think the writers have to strike a balance. Jason Morgan is too important to too many storylines to simply vanish without explanation. His exit has to feel urgent and dangerous, but temporary. Knowing he's coming back changes everything. It makes the suspense more about how he leaves than whether he survives. And honestly, that's half the fun. I have to say, this preview for General Hospital on Monday, February 16th really caught my attention, especially when it comes to Lucas Jones. I may be wrong, but to me, it looks like he's in very real danger. Let me start with Carly Spencer. I was really struck by her conversation with Jason Morgan. Carly tells him that Sonny Corinthos insists Rick doesn't have any kind of agenda. But honestly, I don't think Carly is buying that for a second. And I'm not either. Whenever someone on this show says a person has no agenda, that's usually the first red flag. Now, speaking of Rick, he's taking Elizabeth Liz Baldwin out on a date. And I didn't realize how much I'd enjoy seeing these two in a lighter moment. Liz jokingly asks if he's implying she doesn't know how to have fun, and they're both smiling. To me, that chemistry looks natural. But this is Port Charles. Happiness never comes without a catch. I'm wondering if this is genuine, or just another move in a bigger game. Over to Molly Lansing Davis. She looks absolutely thrilled in the preview. She rushes to Alexis Davis with the exciting news. I think it could be about her book, especially considering how excited she seems. Alexis, on the other hand, is set to make a discovery of her own. And with Alexis, discoveries are rarely small or harmless. At the hospital, things get tense between Liesl Obrecht and Britt Westbourne. Liesl approaches Britt with a request, but Britt makes it clear that her mother doesn't fully understand what she's asking. That alone makes me nervous. Whenever Obrecht gets involved in something complicated, it usually spirals fast. Then we have Jacinda Breckel surprising Michael Corinthos by taking him to a hatchet range. I didn't see that coming. It definitely catches Michael off guard, but oddly enough, it looks like it brings them closer. Jacinda recently expressed doubts to Christina Corinthos Davis, and I was wondering if that meant she'd pull back. But she actually seems genuine to me. Hopefully she doesn't get hurt in the crossfire of Corinthos family drama. Now let's talk about the biggest red flag of all. Lucas Jones at Windermere. Lucas tries to leave, but Marco Rios stops him cold and says, "You aren't going anywhere." That line alone gave me chills. I think Lucas knows too much, and that makes him a liability. The question is, does Marco let him walk away and risk exposure? Or are we looking at a full-blown hostage situation? Here's the tricky part. If Lucas suddenly disappears, the police would absolutely search Windermere. And with everything happening there, the secret lab, the catacomb mysteries, that could blow up fast. So Marco is really stuck between two dangerous choices. To me, this feels like the beginning of something explosive. Lucas may have stumbled into something far bigger than he realized. And if I'm right, Monday's episode could set off a chain reaction that affects half of Port Charles. I don't know about you, but I'll definitely be watching closely.